represents roughly the area of Sherman Oaks north of Ventura Boulevard. I mean, there's some area that is also represented by Councilman Jack Weiss, but she represents that area north of the boulevard. Also, she is a member of the, she's chairperson of the Transportation Committee. And she's going to explain tonight that it took me an hour and a half to get from West LA to Sherman Oaks tonight. There has to be some solution. Also, as many of you may have read, this is her last term in the City Council. She'll be running for City Controller, and the voters will vote in March of next year. And whoever's elected will be sworn in July 1. So there is this limited period of time for Councilman Greuel to get her agenda accomplished, where we welcome her this evening to find out what's happening in Sherman Oaks, to find out how she is accomplishing her goals to make a better Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move this down. This makes me happy. Is this new, this thing here? It's a little hard, so can I take it out here? Okay. Kind of sticks to your face. I'm going to put that thing right there. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here tonight. And I was kind of yelling to Richard when I read that. The newsletter, I was like, this is my last term. I still have to run. People have to vote, you know. There is time for people to run again. So I am very happy to be a city council member, particularly to have represented the Sherman Oaks community. And so I want to thank you, Richard. I have my notes here. I want to make sure I don't forget anything that I want to talk about. But there were 3 topics that Richard indicated were in discussion that we thought we would talk about today. Budget, public safety and gains, and traffic and development, some particular issues that were partially addressed earlier this evening. But before I do that, I want to just thank this gentleman right here, Ron Kay, who has been an extraordinary voice. I do. You know, Ron and I have a love-hate relationship, and so I would call him some days and tell him, I loved your editorial, it was great, I'm so glad you took the city on this issue, and blah, 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 I agree with you. And then I'd call him some days and tell him, I totally disagree with what you said, and we'd have a very nice debate about that. But Ron is someone that I grew to respect and admire, and the Daily News will never be the same without Ron Kay, I have to say. No matter who comes in and plays, Ron Kay is one of a kind, so I just wanted to say that. I want to talk to you about budget first, because that is the most timely. I serve as the vice chair of the budget committee. And we had 52 hours of hearings, many of which went late into the night, and we formally adopted our budget this past Monday. It's amazing when you don't have a whole lot of money, there isn't a lot of discussion about what you're going to do with it. And we do anticipate the mayor will be signing it shortly. I have to say, I've been through quite a few budgets, not only as a council member, but also when I served in the mayor's office, and this was one of the most difficult that I had ever seen. Our city is facing an enormous structural deficit, and I would not allow, as we talked about the future of our city, the tricks of the past. Deficits that were papered over to create the impression of fiscal responsibility to be attempted again. We must simply be more disciplined in taxpayers' money. There were some cuts, but necessary cuts, I believe, in my opinion. I think I took the opportunity for us to look at long-term fiscal health of the city and wanted to make sure that we did structural change that ensured we would never have this kind of big deficit again. Because in your personal lives or businesses, you can't keep living on borrowed time, or in this case, borrowed money. Really, it is unacceptable. I think we've proposed some one-time fixes to get us through this next year, but it's going to really take even more real long-term solutions and systematic change in how our budgets are created, and some one-time fixes. So I want to talk to you about a few items specifically in the budget. We kept the funding for an additional 780 police officers, which puts us on the right track to reach our goal of 10,000 sworn officers in the next year or so, which I think is great news for us to be able to have 10,000. We expanded funds for gang prevention and intervention programs by $24 million, and I'm going to talk a little bit later about how we're going to utilize those funds in a much better way and make sure that we're using them for the kids instead of some of them being squandered. As mentioned, I'm chair of the Transportation Committee, and so we were able to provide money for 348 lights to be synchronized and 147 left-hand turn signals to be installed. I also believe that each of us as council members needed to take some personal responsibility, and in balancing this year, actually this fiscal year's budget, I gave $100,000 back out of my own city budget to the general fund to match, to be able to balance the budget. And I'm particularly proud of some of my proposals that were adopted that help generate additional revenues without raising taxes for people, which I think is important. One is, and I think I have mentioned this before, the sale of city property into the general fund. The current policy of the city is that if you have a city building in your district, 50% of those funds